off 1/4 mile. Do we want to go that way? Let's go. We won't go in, but
Camera flash, whether from built-in or attached units, is not allowed.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Hearst Castle. My name is Michael, and it is a pleasure to be happy.
so it was comfortable.
Largest outdoor heated swimming pool ever built in California at its time. It was built over the period of 12 years while the publisher consistently changed his mind during the course of its construction. He was changing his mind quite often in order that this pool might remain in scale with the main building as it enlarged over time. So each of the 3 versions of the pools that were built on this spot were ever larger than the previous version.
He was actually able to buy antique fragments from ancient Roman ruins in the art of New York in the 1920s. King Neptune, the Roman god of the sea,
Added many from Hollywood here because he was a film producer.
even though they are arranged, set up to look just as they looked in the first
On this financial institution here, this is a much different thing than some of the other buildings are on top. The first stuff was built here by this time until 1878, at the bottom of the hill. And there are 2 buildings at the foreground, really good to stop. Building, although it's on the 4th floor, has cathedral-like ceilings inside. It is designed to look like a Spanish church. I really acknowledge California's cultural contributions. It was a pioneering a style of journalism where they decided that entertainment was as valuable a part of the news as telling the truth, sometimes even more valuable.
to intervene on behalf of Spanish rebels.
It was very aggressive, blaring, and loud. None of them.
None of them, really?
Yeah. How many of you have ever heard of citizen? Maybe an exaggeration. The thing about his whole life is he made a living basically distorting what's happening in the world to sell a newspaper. He became a prime victim of Hollywood's greatest distortion. Sort of an anomaly that it couldn't exist without Hearst. And in truth, this was happening all over the country. And it started, well, about 50 years in America's Gilded Age. And it was an era in it. And from that point on, east side of the main house that we'll stand in at the end of the tour, you can see exactly where construction stopped. This all became impossible in the 1930s when the Great Depression hit America. This became forever impossible to ever finish. Even the staircase walls will be going up, were never plastered and painted. Well, we're taking you to an elaborate suite of rooms called the Doge Suite. 17th century Venetian luxury. You have a question before?
What is the brown up there?
That's a teak wood cornice.
It is wood.
Wow.
And on one point in the tour, we'll be standing on that open walkway, and you can lean out from a very close vantage point.
Okay, I get to close this 300-year-old Spanish door. It was an honor.
You walk into the room, it's quite dark. It's much darker than we probably like to have it. We've lowered lights, in fact, to protect the art collection, so we do like it this dark. In Hearst's time, he liked it much brighter. Door frames, fireplaces, Persian rugs, chests of drawers, beds, cabinets, priests' chasubles. There's rather a misconception about Hearst going through Europe with a checkbook in one hand and a crowbar in the other, prying loose treasures and bringing them back to America, There's a New York architect named Stanford White of the firm of McKim, Mead and White. He did a lot of famous buildings and important homes, including Madison Square Gardens is a famous building. When Stanford White was shot and killed in 1906, the ceiling was for sale. Nicole Ferris called The Girl on the Red Velvet Swing, if you want to read about that she had once dated a New York playboy. Very successful. I think he died. I think that sort of a royal stuff. The library is busy every fall. That's the question. No, they have been replaced with light material from this set, from this decade. She's about. The advantage of these rooms is that each has two beds, so they can be shared with family members or traveling companions, and they each had two bathrooms and spectacular views. At one time, this was the top floor of the house.
Look at the ceiling in here, huh?
This ceiling, we do know, came from a 16th century castle called the Castle of Vignese. It was dismantled at a point in its history, and many of its architectural elements were sold off. And
Where?
You probably figured it out. We're walking around the shaft of a perfectly good elevator.
Many of these books came from her collection. That's the average age of the 155. When you look at a Greek pot like this, look at every member of their family. And all of these.
Now, how is Patty Hearst? Is she a granddaughter or great-granddaughter?
She's one of 5 daughters born to Randolph Apperson Hearst, who is the last of the 5 sons alive.
Okay.
Here a little later on.
This is the city room? But do they have like his film clips or anything?
What's her pet name for him? Those two began a relationship that started with a flirtation when the actress Marion was a dancer on the stage at Ziegfeld Follies. The publisher, 34 years older, would start sending her expensive gifts. He separates from his wife at the age of 62 and begins to pursue the romantic interest of Marion. He officially divorced his wife, and we don't know why that. He was 10 years old in 1873. His mother dies in 1919. She leaves a considerable collection to her only child and $11 million cash so he can do it. A large part of that mining fortune and converted it into a publishing empire, and that's how we know the family now.
This is the view out of William Randolph Hearst's bedroom.
Arm & Hammer administered the sale and set prices. One of her last movies was Cain and Mabel, starring Clark Gable. I don't know if you've seen that one. She co-starred with some of the greats, including Charlie Chaplin, who called her the greatest comedian he'd ever met. It was high praise, although like that. Sad because America lost a great comedian because her boyfriend. Structural concrete, plastered, and painted by a man named Camille Salone. Ceiling sections between the arches are Spanish, modern wood for some of the real large furniture. I understand we did have to use a block and tackle hoist to get through some windows, but that wasn't true on the third floor. These ones.
Well, the building itself is concrete doorways, and they just made them all here and poured concrete in the middle.
In some cases, yes. In some cases, Hearst would actually acquire an antique door frame or some antique stonework. Like this cut stonework right above the door, for instance, is old. Leather style. In fact, I'm happy to answer questions because we can't possibly cover every topic, every art piece that you might have a question about, but we'll try. Thinking, boy, this is really going to be something I'm writing for the ages now. Someday somebody will read this. And then later on, he starts realizing he has more text than room, so he starts cramming his letters together. And by the end, he just goes off the edge.
Well, plan ahead.
Yeah, you've seen that sign, right? Plan ahead. He writes, by the way, in this house between heaven and earth where the sun shines brightly lives Phoebus and his wife Ada and the rectors. And you can even spot keywords like domes for house and terra for earth, and Phoebus' name here, and Ada, his wife's name. Fairly modern times in the late 19th century, 1879. Firebox smaller because...
This is the jewel box bedroom.
Firebox needs to be smallest to reduce the Spanish tiles from the 15th century. Very old Spanish tiles.
Yeah.
They wanted, again, the Muslim influence or the Islamic influence, so this sense of this lattice that you see in the windows is very characteristic of the Hispano-Moresque style, if you will. And 3 balconies. I didn't like it because there were no closets, no place to hang your clothes. I had to hang my clothes from wire coat hangers that were left by the previous occupant hanging from the lighting fixtures. The shower was confusing. You couldn't decide.
I was going to say 18 months ago. And what did they put up a scaffold?
Did the place ever go into disrepair? For a brief period, after the Hearst family left here, Mr. Hearst died in 50. The mean level will be on the same level as the first suite we saw, but in a different part of the house, called the duplex apartments. What we have essentially is stacked rooms, 2 loft bedrooms, one on top of another. And the upper one is...
Andy, there's one down here that you can go in.
Steady yourself as you go up and down. A modern tile and marble bathroom from the 1930s looks like it would work in a home today. And as you slept, you would lie on your back facing a painting by Simone Vouet called Endymion and Luna. The moon goddess Luna and the mortal Endymion fall in love. Hearst decides to adorn them with eagles from the Cosmopolitan Theater in New York. On the wall, it was in the staircase. It was once a window blocked when the south wing was built. A large guest list and had a permanent household staff.
Still does.
The head chef. Several waiters coming and going. So you have to imagine this is a bustling, loud place. So his staff got very good at preparing meals, bringing them to almost done, and then finishing them off just as they did. When Hearst returns at the end of the war, he's ready, very optimistically ready, to finish the house. The trouble is, he's 82 years old, and then his health begins to fade. So most of this area was not planted when Hearst left here. Our state park gardeners have been adding to it. Well, that's a problem, because there's a serious move now by several historic agencies and our own gardening staff to return the gardens to their historic appearance. Hearst visited the mausoleum of Ravenna, Italy called the Galla Placidia, and it served as an inspiration for this room. 1 square cut Venetian glass tiles tile the floor, the walls, the pool, the dining platform. Some of these tiles have a small amount of gold when you're actually walking on them.
Yeah, the last time we took the tour, I said that.
We are. We're still a 5-year plan. It's taking longer and longer time. We've already been restoring it as other building. We're hoping to get to this soon, but we have to wait. I think to be this part of that shallow back one time. Alabaster lights, frame the pool around the water's edge, creating the look of reflected moonlight with a certain intent in the sun. And little star-like patterns at the bottom of the pool are supposed to remind you of the nighttime sky. While the ceiling reminds you in,
Mosaics out of glass.
It just switched to where we finally, I don't know where the visitors may picnic along the beach.
You mean way down there?
Yeah, it's way down there.
ongoing restoration,
Look at the road.
conservation.
Around.
This is the exit.